Oh hey, come on in. Let me ask you something. You ever played a video game? Like a good one? Like one where you're like, oh hey, this doesn't suck? Well, I haven't. Microtransactions and price increases and battle passes and Destiny 2. The enemies of gaming. The only new video game worth playing is Carnival Mini Games Golf Wii, and that game friggin' sucks. Maybe I'm being a bit dramatic, but everybody's ideas are always so boring. My ideas? Oh, my ideas are crazy. I've got a ton of them, and they're all good. All I need is some actual skill, patience, dedication, a modicum of work ethic, and an unhealthy amount of Unreal Engine 5 YouTube tutorials. I can do that. That's the easy part. It's like they say, anybody can work tirelessly for months or years on end on a project and see it through to completion. It's coming up with a cool sounding idea that's the hard part. Oh man, they don't say that, do they? Well, it's too late. I'm making a game. And this isn't the first time I've promised that. A couple years ago, before I made this channel, I had the exact same idea. I want to make a 3D thing where a coffee grinder has legs and runs around with them. And thus, BrewBot was born. Unfortunately, making a game requires more planning than that, so I ended up with this. But in a way, this game idea kinda helped create this channel. One side of me wanted to make my own video game, while the smart side of me wanted to not do that and make a YouTube channel instead. Which is luckily what I did, cause I'm not sure that game was really going anywhere. But I kinda hoped that someday I might be able to find room on my channel for this project. Maybe after I had established myself a bit. I said to myself, if I can make a few Mario Kart track mods and get a Borderlands video about the Nemesis Invader to reach 500,000 views, then I'll know I've made it. Or something along those lines. And so you know what? I'm going for it. It just feels right coming full circle on this. Finally getting to that project that I was so underprepared for. The idea of this whole game sounds so impossible, but I know that none of the steps I have to take to get this game made are actually impossible. It's terrifyingly overwhelming, but it seems like I might be able to do it now. And so, with only some subpar Mario Kart tracks and some miscellaneous 3D modeling to back me up, I'm gonna make an entire video game. Unless this first video doesn't get like a ton of views, then I'm quitting instantly. So, what is BrewBot? Well, don't ask me, I hadn't figured that out either. I only know that it's going to be some kind of 3D platformer inspired by Super Mario 64, which is enough to start making a character and figure everything else out from there. I'm gonna try to take this really slow and careful, and really try to think ahead. Which is a strategy I don't often employ. And so the character modeling process began. There were still a lot of decisions to make, but I approached things very openly, not really making any of the decisions on the game until I had reached that crossroads and more thoroughly understood my options. Which is a smart and responsible sounding way of saying that I didn't know what I was doing. I had spent some time making a concept for this game in my original attempt a few years ago, but it was more like notes on how to make a platformer or just a video game, with such genius innovations as run or walk. Ease off the left stick to slow down. Like, yeah, I guess that's a concept, so is bread. So it looks like I don't have much to work with here. Just a character design and a vague sense of what the game should kind of feel like. It should kind of be like in Super Mario 64 when you find some bizarre corner of the map and then fall into a cool secret level. There's something mysterious and captivating about the look and layout of that game. Something about it feels less digital, less certain, and more analog. Almost natural. It's like they grew the game on a vine instead of programming it. It's like it formed in the mud over thousands of years, like some strange fossil imprint of an ancient world. It looks like actual diarrhea, and that's what I like about it. It's muddy, it's blurry, it's jagged, it's downright ugly, but in the absolute coolest way. If I can make something new that looks like this, but maybe with some fancy touch-ups and modifications, I'd be very happy. And if I find time, I'd like to add some gameplay too. Some clean platforming, and maybe some kind of fun supporting system to interact with to keep things moving along. I would end up getting some good ideas later on, and by the end of this first few weeks, I've got a pretty good vision of where I want to take things. But back during the filming and commentary of these beginning parts, I had absolutely no idea about anything. I was just clicking things, hoping that someday this will turn into a video game. After a little bit of modeling, I had a decent looking low poly character, but this metal block of T-pose isn't very useful yet. We need to rig an armature for this model. An armature is a bunch of bones that you assign groups of vertices to. That way, you can move these bones to warp the mesh in a controlled and hopefully not glitchy looking way, which lets you give the character animations. Now that we've got the character made and fully rigged, we need to figure out our next move. So basically what I want to do is, now that I've got the model made and rigged, I want to make a new project where I can build a scene kind of around it. Just stuff to figure out how I want the game to look and everything that surrounds the character, because I've got him made here. I don't even know if I should make any textures yet. It's hard to know the order you should do these things in. Well, I know I probably want a plane. So I think this is the point definitely where I'm going to have to start figuring out textures. The thing is, the textures I think are super underrated with how much they do to transform what your geometry looks like. There's a lot of models that you can import into Blender and almost think that you've imported the wrong thing, and then you throw the texture on and boom. So basically, trying to model everything out without knowing what my textures are at least going to look like. I don't even know what they're going to look like right now. It's hard to work on something to that weird halfway point. So I guess it's texture time. And so I got to texturing. But how should I make my textures? I've got fancy software like Substance Designer, but that kind of seems like slight overkill for N64 textures. Even if my images do end up being higher resolution than an N64 texture, I'm still going to want to make it blurry and simple looking, which gives me two options. Create a high-res image and then compress it, or create the final texture at a small scale. Option 1 gives me more tools for generating textures without having to paint them by hand, but it also will take longer and introduce the uncertain variable of compression. Maybe some images won't look as good compressed as I thought they would. So to keep things simple and predictable, I'll sacrifice the easier pattern generation for a simpler workflow and use Sprite. Now I'm nowhere near an expert in this software, and I'm also pretty sure that it's for pixel art, not 3D model textures, so I'm gonna try it out and see how it goes. Now, I don't know how to do pixel art at all. I'm not good at that. 32 by 32, okay, so, how big are N64 textures? So grass texture we have 32 by 32. Yeah, so 32 by 32 is gonna be our dimensions here. I started by messing around with the spray paint tool, which was good for speckling in some random noise, and eventually wound up looking sort of like a grass texture. This is where we reach another fork in the road, because there are two types of low res, N64 and DS, blurry and crunchy. Crunchy textures generally look brighter and cooler, while blurry textures are dimmer and warmer. Now, is what I just said actually true? I don't think so, but it sounds true. I went with crunchy textures first, just to see how it would look, since it's really easy to just blur them later. I had to scale the textures up during export to keep the pixels sharp, so the pixel scale is 32 by 32, since that's what I painted it in, but the image itself is a few times larger. Still negligible in terms of file size though. I was able to make a pretty decent steel texture with the line tool. So far, Sprite seems like it might be the right choice. I made another texture in a really similar way for his arms and legs. I want them to have that classic robot arm corrugated metal look, with bend points at the seams of the texture that I can line up with the bone segments. This is that thing I was talking about earlier, how if your texture synergizes well enough with your geometry, it almost changes the visual shape of your model, making it more convincing. After doing that, I started setting up our surrounding environment a little bit. The first thing I did was go over to the World Properties panel and set up an environment texture, which is an HDRI, or high dynamic range image, that lights your scene and appears in reflections. It's basically a 360 image with a really wide range of light data to create realistic lighting for your models. It's also going to be kind of distracting in the background, so let's set up a skybox around our scene. That's how you do a skybox, by the way. Just do this sky, but back face culling shadow. Still not going to do anything because the back face is on the inside right now, so then you select everything, Alt-N, and then flip the normals. Then I just change the material to image texture and open up whatever image I want to use as a skybox. Now there's a whole lot wrong with this skybox. It's too small, it's too close, the image doesn't make sense as a skybox, it doesn't tile, but it'll have to do for now. The next thing I did was make a dirt texture. So far, I had been sticking with the crunchy textures since they just looked better than the blurry ones, but that was mostly because the grass texture just sucked. Because I tested a few Super Mario 64 textures out and realized that these blurry textures are the obvious choice for the muddy, mysterious look. So while making this dirt texture, I decided to mess with the blur tool, which looked really good. I wanted to try a hybrid look, so I put some sharp pixels on top of the muddy texture. Then I inset a face in the grass and put the dirt texture on it. This blurry dirt texture looks pretty good, so I tried blurring the grass texture as well.
Let's just see. That's kind of cool. Doesn't tile well though.
So I went back to Sprite and fixed the tiling issue, which is where the edges of the texture don't blend well together and make the texture look like tiles instead of being seamless. Instead of just using blur, I tried blending them together with the jumble tool, which is when I discovered the power of the jumble tool.
Oh wow, actually that's doing some cool stuff.
Honestly, I was shocked at how well Sprite was working for this. Sure, I had pretty much just generated noise, but in a really manual way that felt very flexible. I feel like I can pretty easily create simple patterns this way, and then use the jumble and blur tools to diffuse it out and make it look like I actually spent a lot of time on it. So what I had now after jumbling was kind of a crunchy texture, so I blurred it one more time, and that gave me a really nice muddy texture. But something felt like it was missing. There's a visual element that I still want to use, and that's that pre-rendered look, like this awesome render of Metal Mario, with cool reflections and things that the N64 just wasn't capable of. One big difference between this render and N64 gameplay is the use of normal maps. That's why these tiles on the floor look so cool. They have a normal map applied to them that tells the lighting to treat the groove between the tiles as if it were an actual indent, as well as these erosion spots. Normal maps are magical little purple squares that make 2D look 3D. There are a few different types of these magic squares that achieve different effects. Basically, every modern game uses a combination of 2 or 3 of these maps to enhance their textures, but the N64 had nothing like this. That's why I think it could look really cool trying normal and maybe specular maps on N64 looking geometry and textures. It's 2 eras of technology that never quite coexisted, but we're trying to so badly with these awesome renders. So let's try that. Metallic textures are going to be the most noticeably affected by normal maps, since they're usually pretty shiny already. So let's start with the corrugated metal. I went over to Normal Map Online, which is a really great free tool for generating normal maps. Then I set up the normal map in the Blender shader editor by making a new image texture node with Shift A, then opening the normal map. I set the node to non-color, plugged it into the color slot on a normal map node, then I plugged it into the normal socket on the material, and you're good to go. But it doesn't look that good. I think it's just too sharp. It seems like it needs to be blurred a little bit, which you can luckily do on the website before saving it. So I updated the image and made sure it was set to non-color again. And...
yeah, totally. Is that the secret then? Is just low-res textures with normal maps?
This is pretty exciting. I can super easily get some pretty cool textures made in Sprite and then make them look even better with normal maps. And who knows what techniques or skills I might pick up in Sprite that could improve things along the way. Already I felt more capable of making textures though, so I went ahead and remade the grass, and it looks miles better. Plus a normal map, this is getting closer and closer to what I had imagined. I remade the dirt texture too. Both the grass and dirt were on a 64x64 canvas this time, which helped the texture have a little bit more detail. Let's go ahead and add some kind of an object or a structure to this scene. Maybe like a block with a brick texture, like some old ruins. Now, a brick texture seems like a little bit more work than just pure noise, but I think we can do it. I started with a beige color and blurred on some brown noise. We have the rock pattern, but now we need the brick pattern, which I was able to make with the line tool. Then I can use the jumble tool at 10% opacity to slightly jitter the lines. And it looks like that made them too faint, so I can make them bold again by drawing darker lines over them and jumbling again. Okay, this actually looks like it might be pretty good. The next step is to unwrap this onto a cube, because I have the texture and I have the cube, but the cube doesn't know how to wear the texture, so I need to place the geometry over the texture in the UV editor. This brick texture is a pattern that's supposed to repeat, but we don't want the noise to tile, so I'll clean that up in Sprite. Now I can line up the brick edges with the model edges to make it look nice and clean. I can also move the UV horizontally to get the corners lined up with the vertical edges.
Oh, that's so good. I did not think that would look good. Like this brick texture is totally awesome. It totally works.
And this is before the normal map.
Go ahead and throw the brick texture in. Whoa! Let's see what this looks like. It's got some weird colors. I'm not sure about yellow on a normal map. Download. Save. Blender. Shader editor. Duplicate. Open. Brick 1. Weird clown texture. Non-color. plug it into normal map, and wow. That is pretty crazy. I mean that's not even that outdated of a texture at this point. From a sprite, 64 by 64. That was unexpected. I did not think that that would happen. I didn't think it would look like that. And then the cool thing is it's totally like scalable, because all I have to do is that. And then as long as I have correct face attribution live on wrap on, look at this. Isn't that cool?
After that, I'm feeling pretty good about using A-Sprite for this entire project, because this looks pretty nice, and it'll look even better with some lights on it.
I kind of want to put a torch on this. I totally want to put a torch on this. Let's just make it out of a cube, probably. And then, you know, you'd have your little fire PNG there or whatever. I could even just go grab one as like a placeholder. Or I don't know. I don't know if I can make a fire. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know if I'm good enough at A-Sprite to do that. Doing this to it could be good. That looks pretty good, actually. What the heck? Okay, this is A-Sprite's fun. This is a lot of fun. Let's do a new material called fire. Be an image texture. Wait, turn off this stupid index of refraction. And then see, one texture is fire. And then there you go. Cool, except it's got the black background, so then you need to go into here and just plug alpha into alpha, and it might crash. It's just funny because it's just like such a basic thing to do. And then the next step is to go to emission, image texture, and open up the same image. You can also just plug it in the shader editor or whatever, and that's fast too. And then there we go. Yeah, we'll just do that for now. Except, of course, in-game, it would be one of those type things where the flame follows the camera angle.
This scene is sort of starting to take shape. I'm starting to see how this could become an entire level, but I feel like there's still a little more we can do.
Okay, what else do I want to make? Some enemies would be cool. So I made a model not so long ago. I don't know if I ever got a render of it. I kind of think it's chilling on a hard drive somewhere. Battery guy. I don't know if this is gonna open, but I'll try. Yeah, it totally opened. Something along those lines.
So I went ahead and started recreating this battery guy, and almost violated some copyright law while I was at it.
Let's just copy like that. Oh, you know what though? Can I not do that? Is that like illegal?
So I made my own copper color gradient and got him finished, and the googly eyes I made gave me an idea.
This is making me wonder.
One that I sort of regretted, but also sort of didn't. I can't tell if this is extremely scary or perfect. Both? I think I'll go without them for now, but I'll keep them in mind. Not that it's a choice, I couldn't forget if I wanted to. Now, as cool as this battery guy is, I don't actually think he fits this level very well, so I'll just vault him along with the googly eyes. Let's see if we can't make a more fitting enemy. I'm thinking of some kind of moss ball with wooden legs and little antenna eyes poking out. I started with a low poly UV sphere and added some cube legs. I made a simple eye texture with the circle tool, and then moved on to a wood texture for the legs. I spray painted a few different shades of brown over the background color. Then I blurred it all. I did this a few times until it started looking like wood. Then I drew some thin, wavy lateral lines of different brown colors, and I blurred those as well, which immediately revealed a pretty decent looking wood grain texture. I fixed the tiling and put the texture on the legs. Yeah, this is kinda what I was imagining. Let's add another detail though. I made a little stem on top of his head using the grass texture on a thin plane, then went back into A-Sprite and drew a basic leaf shape. I drew the little leaf skeleton on and blurred it with a low opacity jumble. it's somehow still surprising how much this improves it. Now I can make a leaf shape at the top of the stem and make a new material with that leaf texture on it. There we go, but I think the legs are too short. Let's scale those up a little. I messed with some different options to try and make this look more complete, but then I realized that it was the cubic legs that were the issue. These would never be cubes in an N64 game. They'd be like PNGs or triangle tubes or cylinders or something, so I'll go with a low poly cylinder. Nice. I think the last detail that this needs is some vines. So I did the same as before and drew a shape that would hopefully morph into something actually good looking when I used the jumble and blur tools. And it luckily did. So I brought that in just like the leaf and extruded it into a segmented strip. Then I wrapped that strip around the leg. I like this because it kind of makes it feel like there's a suspension system holding this guy together. Then I just replaced the unvined leg with the vined one instead of vining the unvined one. And there we have it.
I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty much what I was going for.
The last thing I want to do here is make an animation or two and render them. This means setting up the camera and getting the render settings ready to render video.
60 FPS is good. Let's change where the output is, and then instead of PNG, FFmpeg video, and then encoding, instead of Matroska, we're going to do MPEG 4. Instead of medium quality, we're going to do perceptually lossless.
Now I can get the lighting together a little bit better. I put some of these vines up over top of the scene that'll hopefully create some interesting shadows that'll make you feel like you're in a dim forest with light peeking through the trees. And this seemed to work pretty well. I'd like to make an animation where the camera orbits around this guy, which is something that I've struggled to do before because of how keyframing the camera's position works. So I came up with a solution.
You know what I'm going to do? This is going to be really weird, but let's set the cursor to this guy, and then I'm going to make a sphere. A circle? Okay. Do circles render? No? Okay, in that case, that's perfect. And I'm gonna like pretty much put it right at the center. And then I'm gonna parent the camera to the circle. So now, if I spin the circle, look at that. So now, I don't even need to keyframe the camera. I just need to keyframe the circle.
This'll work perfectly. I wanted a pixelated look too, so I set the render resolution low, but that didn't really work.
Oh man, it's just terrible. It's not crunchy looking, it's just microwaved looking. It's like completely compressed.
After some research, I found a way to do this in the compositor menu.
It should do all that magic stuff, right? Hey, so that's too much.
I dialed it back a bit, but there was still something wrong.
This is my issue. See how there's big pixels? Well then why are there small pixels fading off of the big pixels? How does that make any sense? What are the big pixels if they fade? Pixel size 2. Does that make a big difference? Yeah, actually kind of, yes.
So I think the reason this pixelation is not looking as nice as I'd hoped is because this moss ball guy doesn't really stand out from the background, so it just kind of looks like a mess instead of looking cool and stylized.
Like if I did this, it would probably look a lot better. Yeah, like, okay, yeah, see, that looks awesome.
So I changed the texture of the floor that he's standing on to hopefully help that a little bit. And it looks like it's time to rig an armature for this guy too. It's mostly simple, pretty much the same process as BrewBot's armature, but this time I wanted to try and learn some tools that might speed things up, like symmetrizing the bones from one side to the other.
It just does absolutely nothing. These buttons work for other people.
And this is why I don't try new things in Blender.
Symmetrize, 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 symmetrize. What is it even pretending to do? It does nothing. No, it doesn't. It doesn't act weird. It doesn't act like anything. Okay, so I need to follow the naming convention then. Shoulder dot L. Leg dot L. In theory, it just now worked. I mean, no, basically. Symmetrize. What is this? I'm just duplicating them and then mirroring them on Y and then adjusting them.
Now that we've rigged him, we can start the weight painting. This is where you tell each bone how it will control the mesh. Red means full weight and blue is no weight. Sounds simple, and it is, but it's also super tedious and frustrating, but it eventually did get done.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So we got the legs working more or less. Leg, left one. Oh man, that's totally his right leg. Man, this is gonna suck. Can I flip them? clip names. Yeah, that worked. Other leg, it's gonna be the same. It's gonna be kind of boring doing this all again. Can I mirror the weight painting after the fact? Okay. Never mind. I just have to do that. Watch this. Click. Click once. Oh, now it's that much. Now it's that much. Is it based on how close I got to the vertex? Oh, now it's only that much, so I have to click it again. Not enough still. Click it again. Just all the way. Full 100% when I click. Why does it have to be a paint like this? This is so bad. That works. That works. And that works.
Weight painting is one of those weird things where it's not that bad to do it the way I'm doing it, but it also feels like there's gotta be a better way. I did slowly figure out little tips and tricks, but it's still very tedious. At least it's satisfying when it works. Posing this armature is a lot of fun, and seems to be working perfectly, so I got a simple idle animation made, just for the sake of testing the rig and making a render. And after some rendering, I'd say it's pretty cool. In fact, I did say that.
That's pretty cool.
Although there is some weird glitchy screen space shadow stuff happening with the vine shadows. But that's just the Eevee render engine in Blender. That won't be an issue in Unreal Engine, I hope. The last thing I want to do here in Blender is make some kind of an animated render of BrewBot. How about a run animation? Now this is really my first time animating a humanoid character in Blender, aside from the Waluigi render situation, but that's stretching the definition of humanoid character, so this is going to be very much a learning experience. If this run animation looks like it's on the verge, at least, of almost being borderline mediocre, that'll be cause for celebration. After a lot of guesswork and adjustments, I had an animation that I was ready to render. But I don't want to render him in front of this weird corporate building next to an oceanfront scene that I'm using as an HDRI, so let's make a skybox. So I got this image of a corporate building next to the ocean and tried making it a little more skyboxy. In my first skybox attempt earlier, I used an image that was absolutely the wrong aspect ratio. And this image is too, actually. Which is why I'm doubling the width of the canvas and duplicating the image next to itself. Then I can use the AI generative fill to blend the two halves together, and I can use the offset filter to expose the seam between the left and right edges and generative fill over that too. Now I don't plan on AI generating anything for my finished game, but this is a really nifty way to turn a square image you like into a rectangle that's more skybox worthy, which I can at least use as reference when making an actual in-game skybox. I experimented with it a little bit and ended up sort of just using this skybox as a night sky background. I also adjusted the HDRI and sun to fit this new moonlit scene. And render.
Let's see how it looks.
And that's the end of episode 1 of this BrewBot development log. The concept is starting to come together, and we've got everything we need to begin our journey through Unreal Engine. Getting the models, animation, and textures carried over to a real-time game engine is going to be a bit difficult at first. But once we've got that stuff in a programmable and interactable space, the possibilities are endless. But that's for next episode. Now the way I've filmed this, I've got the first 3 episodes of work already recorded. I'll be editing and releasing those weekly or maybe bi-weekly. I was originally going to use all of the footage for one huge episode and post that as my 3-year channel anniversary, but I realized I want to be posting more than every other month, so I turned it into a few episodes to kind of kickstart the series. But this first episode is going to act as the 3-year special. On July 19th, 2022, I uploaded the first video to this channel. And now, July 19th, 2025, I finally made the video that I've been wanting to since that first upload. So to everyone who's been here with me in the cafe, whether it's just been a few days or a few years, I'm very, very grateful to have you watching what I upload. Also, sorry about not quite delivering on my weekly upload promise from last year. I made it a good ways into the year, but eventually just felt like I had no more one-week video ideas. I'm hoping a weekly or bi-weekly schedule will be more realistic with such a huge, dynamic, almost endless project like making my own game. Not that it's going to be endless, I'm going to finish it. So let's try again. I want to make this a fun place to be, and for more than 30 minutes every 2 months. This is a series that I'm hoping I can steadily release episodes on for the next several months or years. That's not to say I won't take breaks and randomly upload some other crap, like a 3DS game review or something like that. But actually, I think with this series, those kinds of videos make more sense on the channel. I know there are some people who miss the original style of videos I used to upload, so this series might not seem that enticing. But just keep in mind, with this series, I should be able to upload videos in that original style more often. Looking at other games and sharing what I love and dislike about them will help me figure out what I want my own game to be. And I do really miss making those kinds of videos, so this new direction is really exciting for me. Well, anyways, that's 3 years on YouTube, and the first episode of this BrewBot development series. Next time, we'll start exploring the strange world of Unreal Engine, and eventually start designing our first level. Very exciting stuff that I can't wait to share. Well, anyways, I'll talk to you later. Thanks.